afternoon. Right, this is the big thing. When I asked you earlier what was the thing you most wanted to do, when I said NED, the hands rocketed up very quickly. So this is a special thing about understanding about that board thing. How many of you have got an NED, a paid NED? Some of you. How many have got a voluntary NED type thing? Is that with a charity or is it with a sort of free start-up that can't afford to pay you? That start-ups can't afford to pay. That's very common. We often hear, I wanted to be an NED, I started mentoring small companies, now I work 5 days a week, don't earn anything, and what's wrong. So this is going to, in 40 minutes time, all your problems will be over because our experts will have told you everything you need to know. I'm going to ask them, as you know, we've got bios in the brochure, so we don't need long bios from our speakers, but they are all going to tell you their names and their organisations, so we can start from there. So Anne, as the female representative on the panel, would you like to start?
Well, my name is Anne Ferguson. I'm with Anti-Early Roots. And I think I've got to stop at this point.
So I'm Marcus Stuffard, I'm the head of AIM at the UK Pro Office at the London Stock Exchange.
Ian Joseph with Russell GMS, but I also run a subsidiary business called Trustees Unlimited. Oliver Woolley from Investors, we're a private investor network.
Great, thank you very much. Right, so I think the first place I'd like to start is, I think, people tend to work, I'm going to start with NEDs. People tend to work the NED position, but they're incredibly different, aren't they, in fact? So I'm going to ask Marcus to kick off, because he's head of AIM. There you are, lots, there are thousands of NED positions available on AIM. Are they all the same as each other? Why are they different from the FTSE 100? Why is it attractive?
So, just to start, for those of you that don't know all of the background to the markets, AIM is our market for small and growing businesses. We've got 1,100 companies on the market. It's celebrating the 20th anniversary next year. Of those 1,100, 850 are UK businesses, ranging from a couple of £1 million in market cap through to the likes of ASOS, which is valued at over 3 billion. So in terms of size, we have businesses that go to the sort of size that could be a FTSE 250 or FTSE 100 company. So to answer your question, there isn't one type of company, there isn't one kind of directorship. But I think what is happening, not just across the quoted and the listed public markets, but also in the high growth arena, I think people are looking at corporate governance and the role of directors in a very different way to even possibly 5 years ago, and understanding the importance and the value that directors can bring. And one of the things that I'm very, very keen upon is that directors and investors and management teams don't view governance as being something that's just a code that's associated with being a public company. And at the end of the day, it's about being a people business, and it's about finding the right fit with the rest of the board.
Great, that's good. Ian, I know you've got a particular area in the sort of charitable trusteeships, and tell us what's going on down in that case, and what's making people do trusteeships or not do them.
What's going down in that place?
Yeah, what's the really cool stuff? Is it cool to be a trustee of Oxfam?
Yeah, it's great. It's really cool and good fun. Well, just a bit of context, there are 162,000 charities in England and Wales. They range in size from the National Trust or Cancer Research, which turns over £500 million a year, and 4,000 or 5,000 staff, through to little community groups. But the common denominator amongst all of those is that they all have boards of trustees. And trustees are unremunerated by and large. There's no legal distinction between being a company director and a trustee. So you are personally liable potentially if you commit fraud or you do things that are wrong. So it's a very serious role. To answer your question more specifically, and I think we talked about it earlier, people sometimes say, is there a pathway to becoming a non-exec of an AIM-listed company or a PLC? And actually, does that pathway start with being a charity trustee? I think anecdotally there is some evidence, but there's no academic evidence to sort of back that up. What I would say are the skills that you learn being a trustee are pretty much identical to the skills you need to serve on the board of a private sector business. And I think we might, in the discussion, talk about what some of those skills are. But just to answer your other question, why should people get into this hip sort of world? I never thought about it that way before. I think there are mixed motives for doing lots of things in life, and equally becoming a trustee, there are mixed motives for that. I think on the one hand, there is this issue of professional development, building your career, enhancing your CV with a view to taking on a bigger non-executive role, perhaps in the private sector, and certainly remunerated. But the flip side of that coin, crucially important, is that you've got to have a real passion and desire and commitment for the organisation that you're about to serve on the board with. And you've got to recognise that not only are you legally responsible, it's often a commitment for 2 terms of 3 or 3 terms of 3 years, and so you're going to be doing this for quite a long time, so you've got to be passionate. But it is a hit place, it's great. Great.
Oliver, you've been doing investors for a while, and you see this angel early stage VC backbase. It's another place that people like to think of as maybe a stepping stone to greater things in terms of board positions. And what's your take on it? I know you have some investing directors, don't you, in your
yes.
world. What's that happening there?
Well, I mean, I agree. It is quite a hip place to be. And we deal with a lot of investing non-execs. Similar to Ian, actually, Ian says it's in the not-for-profit sector. Actually, we're in the not-for-profit as well. So it's not their intention to be. And probably most of our successful investments that have been done through investors have been when there has been an active non-exec director. And typically, the average sort of investment is around £50,000 for an investing NED, and the remuneration they'll get is they'll get some either in cash, which is anywhere from sort of 6 to 24 grand a year for 1 to 4 days a month. or growth shares or options. We at Investors tend to deal with more scale-ups than start-ups, so I can empathise with people out there who are non-execs of start-ups because they're great fun, but often haven't got much money to pay for things. So from our point of view, it's a great way for increasing the success level of the investments that are made through us.
And for the individual, it can be sort of a way to become very well known or showcase your skills.
Yes, so I mean we've got 3 non-execs that have each invested a minimum of 50 grand into our company, and we asked them why they did it, and they did it because actually they're very interested, engaged in our particular market. We do pay them, but not very much. Our chairman is a guy called Kevin Lomax, who ran Mises, and he did it because he sort of wanted to put something back into entrepreneurship. And hopefully we would ask them, and they'd say that they get a lot out of being a non-exec. But we find that actually it's they do get a lot out of it, of being sort of a good part of an exciting, growing early stage company, and it's great fun.
Good. And dare I say, could you cover the whole of the rest of all board positions in all other sectors? But
well, you know, that has been fascinating, listening to Marcus and Ian and Oliver, and I'm going to take a slightly different tangent, but pick up on each of them. Matthew Hurley Woods, which I've only been with for 7 months, although I first met them about 2 years ago, is a wealth management and employee benefits business that was floated on AIM 10 years ago, and indeed the gentleman who did the float is just sitting ahead of me in the room, Jody Downs. And Matthew Hurley Woods is always highly regarded. I think it's quite a cautious firm within its own growth strategy, but it is very it is very supportive of its clients, and it is quite brave with it. They're working alongside its clients, and they were voted one of the 1,000 most inspiring small companies recently by the London Stock Exchange. Thank you, Oliver. However, before I joined Matthew Hurley Woods, I was with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, curiously, I did not have a job that yielded an income until I was over 40. So I did child taming for 20 years before I realised that one should never marry a man because you think you can cheer him up. I quit that domestic setup, met a younger man, and decided that I would earn my own living from then on. And by some miraculous chance, I've done that. However, the young man died very young, and a year after he died, PricewaterhouseCoopers phoned me. By then, I had built an executive search business, although I am a chartered accountant, Scottish chartered accountant, third generation to boot. Not that that's anything to be proud of. But PricewaterhouseCoopers had heard about me. They knew I had built an executive search business. They also knew that I had a background in accountancy. And the partners who were running the business recovery team asked me to build a network, a turnaround network, and I've got my friend David Mitchell in the audience, which is a joy to see him again. So, and it broadly left me to my own devices, which is good, because when you've been a housewife for 20 years, you're feral, and there's no point in anyone trying to box you in. So this brave organisation brought in this wifey and let me run amok. And I met 4,000 people, broadly, who had been our clients or were our clients, who were looking to do independent roles. So they were people like you. And what was interesting about that community, as opposed to those of you I've spoken to today, is that, so this is back from 2006 onwards, I was meeting people who, some of whom were running brilliant independent roles, and they are undoubtedly of enormous value, almost more value than the consultancy community in what they can add to a business. But others were looking for non-executive roles, which at that time, between 2006 and relatively recently, in some ways were quite scarce. And they thought they had an entitlement to them. And it used to puzzle me that people, quite often men, but not always, lacked a degree of self-awareness. And my attention was caught listening to the Today programme last week to a chap called David Brooks, an American, who has just published a book. I don't know if any of you heard this item, The Road to Character. And there's the heads nodding, that's fantastic. I commend this book to all of you because he talks about the distinction between your resume, the virtues on your CV, and the experience that you have, and the virtues that may be attributed to you at your eulogy, at your funeral. And he argues that when you meet charismatic people, they give more than they take. And these are the people that we remember. And these are the people that we really want to become. And I think to be an effective non-executive, you have to have more of the eulogy virtues. You have to be very unselfish. You shouldn't really be looking to where your next pound is coming from, because broadly speaking, we do by this stage in life have enough to live on. And in all honesty, I work with I sit on the development board of Legatum, which I think is the most profound and important think tank in London. And we had a meeting yesterday and we talked about the Renaissance environment, and I can sense it here in the conversations I've had, where you're looking to put back more than you take. But the other thing is, you're all people who are good at being out there. When people meet you and like you, they will want to work with you. They will invite you to join their businesses. I mean, I in this curious career that I've had since I fled washing kitchen floors, I don't think I've ever looked for a job. People have invited me to work with them. I just think that is so bloody lucky that anyone would ever want to employ me. And sometimes they give me a shilling. But broadly, that bit takes care of itself. Just turning up and having a bit of fun. As Camilla talked about earlier, that's just what it's all about. That's what non-executive roles are about. Thank you.
Thank you.